This Atul, this is myself, Alka, Atul.
Hi everyone.
And I think we'll straight it on. And before we begin, I think both Atul and me were curious to know of what, if there is anything, what do you understand by yoga, or what is your understanding on yoga psychology?
Yeah, a few voices
just
would be welcome, just to sort of give us a little feel of where you are. So if you're already very familiar with yoga, please do say that. If you don't know much about it, please do mention that. And if you have thought about this subject and the connection between the two, do share that. We just like to hear a few voices. I don't know how many people have finally joined, so maybe 3-4 voices max.
Francis has already come up and said totally new.
A few minutes, yep, okay.
So, Alka and Atul, when I got this message, I was super excited because I'm also have gone through Bihar School of Yoga.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and I spent my 1 year time learning yoga. And when I saw that, it's like very exciting stuff to understand from one of the member from the Bihar School of Yoga. Indeed, it's a admiring job that you are doing on behalf of the Bihar School of Yoga. I wanted to understand a little bit more that how do you integrate the yoga therapy in this? Yeah.
Okay.
It's a wonderful job for both of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we have people like this now more with us.
Hi.
Hi, Soni.
I practice a little bit of yoga. I have a yoga teacher at home, my sister. I've been recently introduced to Vedanta philosophy, an excellent teacher to whom we go every week. And she has elaborated a lot on Sankhya philosophy, which is still, I've taken my nascent steps into this, but I'm very much interested in this philosophy. I think it makes a lot of sense, and I see a lot of connect between yoga and coaching. Mm-hmm. But I would love to see how you integrate, as someone already said. So, very, very excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Most welcome.
So should I stop the share and let everybody see each other for the time being, and you then let me know when you want the share again of PPT?
Yeah, maybe that's. Okay. Oh, superb. Yeah, okay. So we have some, the group chat actually, I think everyone can read that, right?
Yep.
Totally new, just restarted yoga, totally new. I'm looking forward to learn this combination of body and mind. Sure, thanks. Looking forward to making and connect. Okay. So thank you so much. And let's take this off, I guess.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks. Hey, thanks for that lipstick. That was really nice. Arvind.
Arvind is mute, but we will just say thank you. That's fine. Okay. So I think...
hey, Raghu, hi. It's an honor to have you here.
Hey, Raghu, hi. Sorry.
Okay. Wonderful. So...
actually, I think we have a lot of people here who also have, I think, are masters in their own way. And I think what we would like to begin with, that this is an effort that Atul and me are making, because both of us have been yoga practitioners for over 20 years. We've done our teachers training from different schools. And yoga, for both of us, it was more for personal development as we were moving, and it was more about per se for ourselves. When we moved into coaching, we could immediately see the link of coaching and yoga as a yoga, what the yoga philosophy was saying. Interestingly, if we can, so where's the Can we move Rajat to the slide? Okay.
One
so
second.
What happened is basically when I personally, I mean, Atul has been doing for a very long time, but personally, when I went into, did my coach training program, and we were given the Tim Galway's, the book on the tennis and the inner game of tennis. And we had to study that. And when we studied that, and Ashutosh ji is right here, who was also a part from my batch, I found it very interesting that basically there was a lot that Tim Galway had himself probably studied and had his own insights from the yoga philosophy, and especially the yoga philosophy of Patanjali. So therefore we both had a chat, and we said, okay, if this is a lot is about a lot of concepts in yoga philosophy talk about how we can become more effective coaches, how we can be more, I would say, more effective in our presence, then also in our processes with the coaches. So how can we use the yoga psychology, use different various concepts to this? So that's where the journey began. We are on an effort. We would love to have people like you who already have some knowledge around it to share. We would like to, and we can all work towards this together. So we are not major experts on this, but it's a journey that we've taken more as practitioners. That's the first thing that I would like to say.
Yeah, I mean,
anything.
No, I think that's it. So as I see it, there are two ways of looking at this. One is to use the wisdom of the sutras to work on oneself. And when you work on yourself, it impacts your professional capability as a coach as well. And that it's an endless journey. It's a long journey. And the other aspect of this, which I find very interesting, is that there are so many frameworks of the mind and the way it works that we can apply directly into our coaching practice, even as we continue our own journey of development. So we look at it as two different facets. One is what you can do with yourself, and the other is what are the frameworks and concepts that you can bring into your own coaching practice, which that you use with clients, into the questions that you ask them, and all of that. So what we'll attempt today is to give you a little glimpse of our journey. And Rajat we are offering through Rajat a bigger program, which is 30 hours, which has got ICF recognition. So we hope to just give you a little glimpse of what that program is going to delve into, and maybe tickle your curiosity about it a little bit. Because in the time that we have, there is only so much that we can cover. So the sort of framework that we'd like to use is we'll share with you what we have, and then we'll leave time at the end for Q&A, if that's okay with you all. Are you all right with that? Because if we get diverted by questions halfway, it will take up time. So we just give you a little overview and be happy to answer questions at the end of that. Is that all right?
Yeah,
okay.
I guess. Yeah.
I guess it's all right. So we'll move on a bit.
So I think the first slide. Sorry. Sorry. Okay, we're just learning how to.
Excuse me.
No. Okay. This is no.
Why is it advancing?
Rajat, are you doing something? No.
We just want to go to the second or the third slide. So we're
second slide.
Between Rajat
That's
and
it. That's perfect. Thank you, Rajat. So
yeah.
Okay. So this is interesting, actually. If you look at it, what we have done is taken a quote from Tim Galway, his Inner Game of Tennis, where he says, "When the mind is free of any thought or judgment, it is still and acts like a mirror. then and only then can we know things as they are. And if we are all aware that Tim Galway was the person who initiated the coaching process. It was he who really, and I think it's nice to remember him today because he's passed away recently. But it began from him, and Patanjali has 2,500 years back, Patanjali Maharishi had spoken about yoga as a stilling of the changing states of the mind. So we see a very similar kind of thought process out here. Interestingly, Tim had come into India and he has dedicated this book to Maharishi Guruji from here. So that's where we kind of see the similarities of the two books. We move ahead. So to us, actually, it was also that, so let's look at the original of all the wisdom that is around. And let's see what the original sage has to offer to us.
Yes,
you want to speak about Patanjali?
Just a wee bit. I mean, it's probably well known to all of you that Patanjali is not the originator of yoga. Yoga predates even Patanjali. And it is said that around the time of Patanjali, there were almost 1,800 schools of yoga. And what Patanjali did is he distilled the wisdom of all of them and he condensed them into 196 sutras. So yoga has many connotations. There are various kinds of yoga. So when we, in this context, when we refer to yoga, we are talking only about yoga as codified by Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras. So, I mean, so things like Bhakti Yoga, Raj Yoga and all that, there are various other yogas, which we will not mention at this moment. I just wanted to clarify that.
I don't know how it's moving, but anyway, I just want to stand corrected. I am sorry, I mentioned actually Tim Galway. It's John Whitmore who has passed away recently. I'm really sorry on that. It's not Tim Galway. No, I said sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. Can we move to the next slide? Yeah. So basically, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
So basically, Patanjali speaks about 5 different states of the mind, and he speaks that there is the first state. One state is the Shipta, which is a restless state, where we are wandering. The mind is all the time wandering. It's restless. It's in a state of confusion. The second state it speaks about is Mudha, which is obsessed, when the mind is completely infatuated with an idea, with thought or something. That's another state. It moves to Vikshipta, which is more about, it's a distracted, it's sometimes steady, but it's often distracted. And then the fourth state he speaks about is Ekagra, which is the one-pointedness. The restraint or the Nirodha is the final state. But I think as coaches, if we can work towards bringing our state of mind more towards being Ekagra and more one-pointed, and recognizing where we stand. Do we stand being a Mudha, which is more of an infatuated or an obsessed mind? Or do we stand in Shipta, which is all the time restless? Or do we stand in Vikshipta, which is, it's steady sometimes and then something happens and then we again get distracted and we all the time trying to make this, hold our mind, but it doesn't. It just gets distracted with something other. So we recognize where we are and then we make the efforts to move towards Ekagra. So that is the entire I would say the effort as a coach, and we're going to try to link this all the time with coaching, as a coach that we need to make. Because we're talking about stilling the inner chatter, we're talking about stilling our own opinions, we're talking about our own prejudices, moving over them and becoming one with the coachee. And at the same time, how to become more effective. So our own inner chatter to get it going, to still it is what we are talking about here.
I mean, I just want to make a quick link between this and what Galway mentions earlier about when the mind is still, you see things as they really are. He's probably describing the Ekagra state. And if you look at the Patanjali's definition, Patanjali really talks about, okay, it's fine, we need to stay and to see things as they really are. Let me tell you how. So the Yoga Sutras are they're an applied thing. It's a practical manual about how you can achieve that state. Just a little bit about these 5 states of mind. They are called Chitta Bhumis. That means they're the ground. It's almost like a personality type. I know I'm going to try and draw parallels with Western nomenclature, but I'm oversimplifying. Basically, in the Kshipta, Muda, and Vikshipta, I mean, the fact that you're attending this presentation probably means that you're in Vikshipta. There's a good chance that you're in Vikshipta. But all these first 3 states, the Kshipta, Muda, and Vikshipta, are outward focused. They are drawn to the outside world. And when you can turn your gaze inward, you step into more and more towards the Ekagra state. A fine point is that the Vikshipta state is a very big one, and there are many, many gradations of that. So even if you are in a Vikshipta state normally, there is a lot of progress that you can make even in that state. So, yeah.
Okay. So Sony is asking to just share the first slide again. We'll quickly do that. That's a quote, Sony.
Yep. So what Galway is saying is that when the mind is free of any thought or judgment, it is still and acts like a mirror. And what Patanjali says is that yoga is the stilling of the mind.
Okay, so we move to the next.
Okay. Another concept that so like we told you earlier, we're just going to give you little glimpses just to tell you and to show you how yoga itself is really a study of the mind more than anything else. It is because if the objective is to still the mind, then we need to know what the mind is. So there are lots of frameworks in the sutras which talk about how the mind is composed. What we are attempting to do is give you little glimpses of some concepts from there. And the vrittis, in fact, the definition of yoga in Sanskrit is chitta vritti nirodha. Chitta is the mind and the personality complex. Vrittis are what you're seeing on the screen right now, which is whatever your mind does can be classified into one of these 5 categories. And nirodha is to stop them, is to get beyond these things. Now, if that is the definition of yoga, what are these vrittis that we are really attempting to overcome? Now, the sutras say that the vrittis are 5 in number, and they can be helpful or unhelpful.
It's basically klisht or aklisht.
Yeah, klisht or aklisht. And what they also tell us is that, look, it's probably simpler and better to work on strengthening the helpful ones rather than trying to attack the ones that are unhelpful. It's that drawing a bigger line next to a shorter one, the same analogy. So there are the 5 vrittis are praman. Praman is defined as right knowledge, which means when you look at something or when you learn about something, you learn about its true nature. You're not making a mistake there. And there are 3 types of what we call correct cognition, right? These 3 are, one is your first-hand experience, which is pratyaksh. That means if you see something with your own eyes and you don't mistake it for something else. The other is Anuman, which is inference, where if you see the ground wet and the road wet and the trees wet, you infer that it has probably rained. So that's an example of Anuman. And Agama is the last one, which is testimony of somebody who is knowledgeable. So the entire body of knowledge which comes down from the rishis and the munis, or even in modern times, what is there in libraries and things like that, is testimony, if it is coming from a valid source. So many of you don't trust Wikipedia, but those of us who do, Wikipedia is a valid source. And therefore, that is what we would call in Sanskrit Agama, or testimony from somebody who is more knowledgeable. So there are three types of knowing things right. Viparya is when you look at something and you mistake it for something else. It is wrong knowledge. The classic example is when you look at a piece of rope and you mistake it for a snake. And then you base all your actions on the fact that it's a snake. You pick up a stick and you beat the rope. We do that shockingly all the time in our lives, as do our clients that we all probably know. Vikalp is when your thought process is based on something which is not real. That is imagination. The difference between Vikalp and Viparya is that in that case, you're mistaking X for Y. In Vikalp, there is neither X nor Y. There is no basis for your thought. It is imagination. It's coming from your own mind. It's a creation of the mind. The fourth one is Nidra. And technically, it is dreamless sleep. Because when you're dreaming, it could be a function of one of the other three. So, but even dreamless sleep is classified as a vritti. It is something to be overcome. So the difference between dreamless sleep and a person who is fully aware is that in dreamless sleep, your tamas quality is active. You're not really there. Whereas when you're awake and you've got your senses under control, that is the state of concentration which we all strive towards. And Smriti is memory, which is where, based on your past experiences, if thoughts are arising, that is what the remnants of the past experience is what yoga defines as memory. So anything that remains in your mind based on a past experience is memory. So these are almost all our mental activities will fall into one of these five categories. And this is how yoga looks at it. And these five categories can all be either helpful or unhelpful. You want to mention about helpful and unhelpful?
Yeah, no, so how do we relate this to coaching? And what my personal practice or experience has been around that is that, so when we often talk about the inner chatter, we often say that when we are working this, even if we look at ourselves in our day-to-day life, there's constantly something or the other that is going on in our minds. Constantly we are thinking, about something or the other. Now, that all the thoughts that keep emerging all the time are thinking processes, those are the lot of vrittis that all the time keep coming. Now, some vrittis or some thought process will help us towards being ekagra or towards, moving towards concentration. But some of them don't help us at all. They actually pull us down. And to become more aware of which one is really helping us in the process of where we want to go, and which one is actually pulling us down. So when that awareness emerges, and when I am thinking all the time, we had a very wonderful exercise that we did about reframing in what we have in coaching. And when something is there and you look at it in a more positive way and you try to see, okay, what is an opportunity that emerges from that? Now, in the similar manner, instead of trying to work on the unhelpful vrittis, like Atul was mentioning, we try to more enhance and more look at our thoughts becoming more and more positive, or moving in the direction that will help us to concentrate. So that's, I think, where vrittis are concerned. We often speak of inner chatter when we are in the coaching process as well. Even before our client or coachee is saying something, our mind is already thinking about what the next question should be about, or how will I get my outcome here, or how do I really make him, or her come to where I really think he should be. And so many times we say, oh no, we know what the problem is, but we want to say something. And so many times we've got to stop ourselves there, because that's not our journey. I mean, that's the coachee's journey. So that's a struggle that we all face. Okay, the next, Rajat, yeah, thank you. So if we have to move towards concentration, and if we have to move towards stilling these vrittis, so what are the blocks that come in our way? And both Atul and me find this very useful, the concept of kleshas, or the obstacles to change, in using in most of the leadership programs or coaching that we do. So when we speak about blocks, so what is stopping you? What is the block do you experience? So there in yoga gives us 5 basic blocks that so basically the reason, I mean, any block could be because of any of these reasons. So the first one is avidya, or ignorance, which is we are just not aware, right? We are ignorant, and that could be the block that we are facing. The second could be an ego identification. We see a lot of leaders facing this problem all the time. I get so identified with what I have done, or what the position that I'm holding, or what I have created, that I do not allow the others to really come, and I just cannot let go. So my ego is coming in between of any growth. The third is the attachment. I'm usually attached to something or the other in our life. Most of the time, we get too attached to things. Attachment can also happen like without an ego. Identification is something which I identify with myself, but attachment can also happen with a culture in a company. So a culture has been going on for a very long time. It's even beyond me. I mean, it has come much before, and I say, no, I don't want to change that culture. It's been there for the past 50 years. We just don't want to see this change. Now, we are so attached to that. So, or there could be so many different, examples that you could look at into attachment. The other block could be around the dvesh, or the hatred or aversion. We just don't like something. We may not like change. We may not like so many things that we don't like people. We don't like the way people think. We don't like the way people, their opinions are. Sometimes we feel, okay, why is he even sitting like that? That's not the way to sit, or that's not the way to talk. So all the time there is an aversion for something, and fear of change, abhinivesh. We don't want to change things. So basically, Patanjali talks that the obstacles that we face, if you will really go deep down, and we thought that you could, immediately take a minute, and we'll probably give you a break of a minute. Once Atul has, shared what he wants to share, then we'll just take a little minute, and maybe you could think of one particular thing in your life, and you could think, okay, so if that's what I want, what is blocking me? And does it fit into any of this? And probably you will be able to see what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I just add a little bit here. What the biggest avidya that a coach faces very often, and you'll probably relate with this, is the coachee's own understanding of his potential. I can't do it. It's not up to me. And most of us our jobs are to help him to challenge that perception that he has of his own lack of potential. So avidya becomes a very big one, and even in the sutras for spiritual development also, avidya is often rated as the biggest klesha. And we constantly battle with this. So I'll just give you a little example of, there's a client of mine who's a CFO who's being groomed for being the CEO. And because he's a CFO, his attachment is to the finance function. So everything that comes from finance, he's very keen on and he's completely interested. And he has an aversion towards marketing. He thinks all the marketing buggers are wasting the company's money. And classic thing, I have so many dialogues around just this with him. And say, boss, if you've got to rise further in your organization, you have to get over this rag and this dvesh. And it makes for very interesting conversations. So in fact, what we do sometimes with our clients is that we just make these 5 columns and say, okay, you want to accomplish something in the next 3 months, put down in each of the columns, what are the things that might be bothering you or that will likely to block you. So this is a good example of a framework from yoga that you can almost apply directly into your own coaching practice. That's what I want to say. Yeah.
So I guess we'll just take a minute and maybe you can think about something in your life or a dilemma, a quest, anything that you have, and if you can identify any of the clash that is coming in your way as an obstacle.
And we'll open up the lines for 2 minutes after that so we can hear people. So think of a change that you would like to make and think of the blocks that you might encounter.
So would, Rajat here, so would something like, I want to help my client as a coach, will that come under attachment?
Brilliant one. Yes. Yes.
But you have to also understand attachment.
Can I add to this?
Can I? Yeah, sorry.
Yes.
Can we just complete this?
This is Akhil.
Yeah, Akhil.
Yeah, so I mean, this can come as ignorance also. Okay, it can come as ignorance as well. To us, which stage of Kalesha you are at, that will determine what are you doing with the customer, what are you doing with your client.
Yeah, so interestingly, because that is what I wanted to say when Rajat was saying, and the fact that I want to help the coachee. Yeah, it could be more of also it could be an ego idea that I can help the coachee, right? And it could be ignorance also at the same time that you think you can help, but actually the coachee can help himself. Your role is something else there. So.
Yeah, I mean, your intention will tell you what it is.
Correct. So it's a difference between the language, right? So I can versus I want, right?
Yeah.
So it can have different meanings.
Exactly.
So again, the moment you said this word, Rajat, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. It's okay.
The moment you said that I can and I want, then it may also move into the one stage of the klesha to the other as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, as I said, we need to look at the underlying intention. That's really important.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm
Brilliant.
sorry. I could not stop my part of it. Sorry. That is, again, this is a kind of an ego.
See, I think I think there is another concept of in the Yoga Sutra which talks about everything in matter is made up of 3 gunas or you can say qualities, sattva, tamas, and rajas. Now, it also depends on which state of the mind you are at that moment. Is your sattva more high, or are you in tamas? Is what will determine where you're coming from and what you are really looking at. So that we didn't touch upon that right now, but yes, that would have impacted, what you were saying, Rajat. Please continue.
Could you give the English words for the three gunas?
Okay, impossible, but close approximations is that rajas is activity, tamas is inertia, and sattva is clarity. In the Yoga Sutras, the words that they use are prakash for sattva, kriya rajas, and sthiti for tamas.
Fair enough. So we have people.
These are manifestations of the gunas, which are sattva, rajas, and tamas.
So if you're coming with that clarity of where your intent is coming from, it's okay. You may not be that, in that sense, attached to it. You are attached at the same time you are unattached. So that's the
chitta bhumis that we mentioned earlier actually are determined by the balance of the three gunas that you have in you at that time. So if you have a rajas dominant, you will be aggressive, you will be outgoing. If you have a tamas dominant, you are likely to be slightly more introverted, less active,
more infatuated,
more
obsessed,
more obsessed with your own things and all of that. But let's hear a few more people.
Sorry.
Anybody else did some thinking around the kleshas?
So it's very interesting because knowledge itself can become an ignorance. When you were talking, I was thinking about it, and it can, knowledge, which is called vidya, also can lead to ego identification.
Yes.
So it's very interesting that how they are being put across and left for people to interpret on their own. It's very interesting.
Yeah, that's why, I mean, we about this as being something that you have to first experiment with on yourself. And then you get a little flavor of, okay, boss, so this might be what he's trying to say. But these are works that, I mean, you can use with clients and it really works. At least for me, it has worked nicely. Anybody else? One more voice. If someone wants to say something, we've got time for that before we move on.
Ram here.
Yeah, Ram.
So somewhere it could be working with a client. It could be attachment to results. Right?
Yes.
So you're attached to a certain outcome. So where there is an outcome which is there, and being attached to that, one might not do the right thing. Right? Ask the right questions.
Okay. First thing to remember is that Yoga says that the kleshas are something to be overcome. So when you say attached to results, yes, but the action that you perform has to be without attachment. Otherwise, that distorts the results themselves. And I mean, if you're obsessed with the results, then you might end up doing something else. I mean, we know a lot of senior executives who have no choice but to be attached to results. But I mean, it works for them sometimes it doesn't work for them. We've got to look at what is blocking them at that time. So if it is not a block, if it's helping him, that's fine. Let's just move on. But if his excessive attachment is blocking his own progress and his ability to achieve those results, then it's something worth investigating and questioning further.
Yeah.
Sure.
And
So,
also these are what we have to work towards. It's very clear what Yoga Sutra says, that these kleshas are going to be a block to your growth. There is no doubt in that. And therefore, it is something you have to, so if there is an attachment, it is going to somewhere or the other not allow us to grow. So the outcome, the attachment, we need to definitely work towards that. And,
So we have Sony with a question, I think. Sony, I muted you. You can unmute yourself again. And then there is Shabri on the chat with a question.
Okay. So Sony, can we hear you?
Yeah, Sony.
Hello. I just wanted the simple Hindi and English words for the three gunas, and I just also was wondering about this concept of when we are talking about these avidya and all, it would also be connected to the blind spots. As somebody mentioned, your knowledge can also become a source of your ignorance. Actually, I had something on my mind, but it is just slipping away.
Okay,
so I'll park it for now.
Your first question. So sattva is clarity in English. I mean, just realize that these words we can never find the exact meaning of the Sanskrit words. We can come closer to them in the English, but most times we do not find the exact words in English. Yeah? So sattva is something which brings in clarity, stillness, calm, and the other was rajas, which is activity, because rajas, the quality or the character all the time bring in movement and activity.
And aggression
and make you hyper, and that's, so it's always wanting movement. And tamas is the state of inertia, right? When you don't feel like doing anything, you go into a kind of a depressive state, and you don't want to move. You're continuously in that same obsessed, dull frame of mind. That's.
But all of them play a useful role.
Yeah.
If there was no tamas, you didn't get sleep.
And which is the interesting part, but right now we don't. But what was very, very fascinating is that all the three have a role to play in our growth.
Yes, and then you also use the three Hindi words, that is Kriya, Sthiti, and I missed the third one.
Prakash. Kriya, Sthiti.
Sorry?
Yes.
Prakash.
Prakash, as in light.
Light.
Okay,
Illumination.
Prakash, Kriya, and Sthiti are the words that are used in the Yoga Sutras.
Okay.
Whereas the guna comes from Indian philosophy. It's in Sankhya.
Okay.
Sankhya, they mention the gunas.
Yes.
Prakash are manifestations of the gunas.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Okay.
Somebody else is...
There's one more person.
Yeah, so Shabri has asked, since all the kleshas in a way create a fear of change, why is there a distinct klesha abhivinesha?
Okay, it's interesting to sometime, maybe when we're doing the course, to go and explore this further. There may be some, because abhiniveshan I'm giving, and then you can, because it's also when you see a fear of death, right? What is fear of that? So yes, there is an ego identification in that. There is an attachment in that. You want to live. You want, but so all you cannot look at each one of these totally as a compartment. They do flow with, overflow with each other. There is always going to be that kind of thing. And so, for example, if you take hatred, at some point I'm obsessed with my aggression towards something. So that means there is an attachment to it, and I don't want to let it go. So yes, you are kind of there, that there is a fear of change into most of them.
Yeah, I mean, actually, they're different from each other also, and that's why they have been classified separately. And remember, these are obstacles to change. So if you just delete the word fear of change, I mean, just knock off the of change. Fear itself, by itself, can be a big obstacle to change. I don't know what will happen. You know, what will happen to me? What will happen to my job? Which is a different obstacle to not knowing, attached, or avoiding, or putting your ego on the line. So they are different, and yes, they will transmute into each other at some point. Yes, that is very possible. But we need to understand that these are different things. And sorry.
No, I was just saying it's a fear of the unknown. There are so many times that's the fear of the unknown is fear of change, but it may not do anything with my attachment or my hatred. So both the things are there. They can't be completely compartmentalized. At the same time, there is a reason why each one is there in that sense.
So, see, I think the question is also more around all the other four will create a fear of change, right? They lead up to fear of change, right? But sometimes I'm also wondering, this is my thought process, is that ignorance might lead into change without knowing what I'm really changing. So there might be no fear to change. Because of ignorance, I'm changing without knowing what am I really doing here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, if we just look at Abhinivesh as fear, you will see that it is different from attachment, hatred, ego, and ignorance. Because people are scared. I mean, in an organizational context, people are scared of the consequences. What happens if I accept this target and I don't achieve it? What will happen then? Which is different from saying, hey, I don't know how to go about this. Or how dare they give me this kind of a number or whatever. So it is a different blocking emotion.
And someone is just, commented here, I don't know who, but that it's
Francis.
difficult to distinguish, Francis. But it's not like that. And when we go deeper into trying to understand each one, you will be able to understand more clearly about how they are different. It may look like that now, but they may somewhere run parallel, or they may have run over each other, but one can really understand the difference on the five.
So I think they are distinguished in a manner that you, in a given situation, you may be able to relate to one or two or more. And you may not find only one at a given situation.
True.
But they are still distinguished.
Yes.
In fact, that is the important thing. So like if you do an exercise with your clients and give them 5 columns, they will fill up different things in each of those 5 columns. I think we should move.
Yeah.
I think we should. We 10 minutes left.
Yeah. So we just quickly.
We are going to quickly give you a little overview. I think we can.
So basically, I mean, if you look at all coach competencies, you can classify them into one of these 3. We like to put being right at the center because we think it's most important. Who you are, what you know, and what you do as a coach. Yoga psychology can inform all the 3 circles, and therefore, I mean, it can help us in each of these 3 circles, and that's why we believe it's important.
We are going to now find Rajat, can you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if we have the time for this, but shall we just go into?
Just kind of
So take care. So Nitin,
okay. What this is our little attempt to create a model where.
Nitin, if you can wait with the question. Let them finish this. So guys, take your time, explain it, but then we'll have to be as well sure that we are moving forward.
I was just.
So are you telling? I mean, so should we continue or what?
Continue. Nitin, can you post your question on the chat parallelly?
Yeah, we quickly do.
Okay. So basically, one of the things that at least I have felt frequently is, instead of saying what do you want as a goal, which is, if you look at that, if we try and unearth the client's real need or dilemma, what is his yearning, what is his really, really strongly felt dilemma. That is a good start point. The next one is observe, which is what are the vrittis? What's happening in the mind for the coach as well as the client? I mean, and which of those are being helpful, which of those are going to be unhelpful? If that is the exploration stage. And then this one is a very interesting box where, if you ask a client what is the best option in these circumstances, you're likely to get a different answer from if you ask him what is the right thing to do. It's often when I've asked a client that, so in these circumstances, what is the right thing for you to be doing? You get a very different answer from what is the best thing. So if we can help clients to source their actions from dharma instead of expediency, this model enables us to ask those questions. And if you have to do your dharma, where are you stuck? Which of the kleshas is your stumbling block, and where and what? Can we explore that? And is action without attachment. If you can get them to act so that, okay, the action may succeed, may fail, but are you going to let them fall? So how do we encourage that absence of attachment in the actions that we are getting our clients to do? That's how we see it. And the whole thing centers around who the coach is, what is the coach's being. And that's why we put presence right there in the middle. So first thing is, as coaches, we need to strengthen our own presence, our own sense of being. And once we are there, half the job is done. And then the rest of it is just a framework to help us as we move along. But these are a few tips here, which if you find useful, you're welcome to use them.
Yeah. So I think now we'll just share with you the program that we're looking at. Rajat, can you? No, I think this we can kind of figure this out.
Yeah. Next
one, please.
I'll let it be there for a second, or around 15-20 seconds here for people to see the questions that go along with this.
Okay.
An idea of what happens in these spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sure.
And in the meanwhile, you can explain why knowing is in the middle of the being and the doing.
The being is in the middle.
The being center. Then you have knowing and then doing. Nitin and asking,
that's right.
Doing should come first, then
doing should come. Okay, I mean, we don't see it as sort of a linear model. We just want to emphasize the importance of the being bit. And to give you an example, there are some people in whose presence your questions get answered just by being there. They have such a powerful presence. And we've all experienced somebody like that in our lives. They don't need to use the crutches of clever questions or, exercises or activities. It's just their presence which inspires all those solutions in our minds. As coaches, I think that's the paths that we all need to look at and tread. If we can reach there, that's great, because then things get on their own.
Yeah, that's true. It does lead one to the other, definitely. So if we look at it, so the being from where you're coming, when you are coming in the sense what I was just saying, then obviously the knowledge will increase, and then you will move into your doing will happen. And the more the doing will happen, the more your being. So the application. So it does move into a cyclic manner. That's what the question is.
Sure.
And this is also something we can again further explore. Maybe, if you have a different view, maybe we may sometimes change that. So if together we all agree with that. So, okay.
So Rajat, you want to talk a little bit about this? Because the contents are all there on the screen.
I have got multiple windows running.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm
Okay.
chatting and participants.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Okay. No problem.
So okay, I'll go. So you guys
Overall,
can explain.
basically,
Yeah, Rajat, that's the restless state of mind.
I know. Complete.
okay, so the 2-day program, what we were looking at is the way we had looked at it is the first day is more going to be about theory, more going to understand the concepts, which is more in context to the being, what we spoke about, the presence. And then from there, moving into the practice bit of it. So what are the different techniques or framework we can actually apply and practice on a day-to-day basis? Personally for ourselves, at the same time in our coaching process. So that's how I think we had looked at it, because there were quite a few interesting concepts in the which Patanjali has given us. So we could look at that and could see the application of it. So that's what in the end, in this day 2, we thought of doing a personal development plan, a PDP, which then you can take through and work on it. If you look at the next one, that's how the coaching and the mentoring sessions. So in the 2-day face-to-face in the 16 hours is what we would have those 2 days, 1 day on theory and the next day on more on practical bit. From there on, when you make your PDP, we move to see, okay, on one-to-one basis, how is it moving? Where do you think your blocks are? Or, you can talk to us around that. And then the other bit was more around group calls, where we could all learn from each other in context to the concepts and our own experiences in applying those concepts, both for our own growth at the same time with the coaching, with the process with the coaches. Yes, there'll be self-study and assignments. So total. Rajat, you want to add something to this, please?
Yeah, so we are planning to launch a batch of some initial batch of this. This is ACSTH as well as CCE approved. So if you are looking for renewals, it works as 30 hours, and that is what you need. But I think the reason you should really do it is for going deeper as a coach. It should not be about getting a ACSTH or a CCU. It's a brilliant program. So not trying to oversell, but I've seen them in action and I know what it is as well. So this is, if you guys are interested, reach out to either of all 3 of us anytime, and we'll be happy to take you through this in more details. Opening up for questions, and let whoever has questions can ask. And I know the time is over, but whoever wants to hang out and still ask the questions, please do. You're here. Sony dates we'll publish in, I think, by next 2 weeks. We want to see the response of how many people are interested, and then we publish the dates. I'll come back to you, Sony, on that.
Okay.
Let me talk to Alka and Atul on this, and I'll come back. Any questions? Thank you, Ashutosh, for coming in.
Thanks, Rajat. Thanks, Alka.
Thank you, Akhil.
Yeah, we'll touch base.
Yes.
Sometime later. All the best.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you.
It's a wonderful initiative.
Nadine, it might be a online availability as well, so we'll figure it out. So that version, the online versus face-to-face. But you are most welcome to come to India for it.
Thank you, everyone, for being there and giving us this opportunity to talk about this.
Thank you guys for joining in.
Thank you, Shabri.
Thank you.
Bye, Nadine. You take care. Thank you, Sony.
Welcome.
Okay.
Thank you, Francis. Thank you, Shekhar, for joining. We didn't get to say hello.
thank you to each and everyone. And so, Rajat, can we?
Yeah, you guys can drop out. That's okay. I will stop the recording.
Thank you, everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for your time, everybody.